Hi everyone again, and welcome again to Brontë Mania. I'm sorry there's been such delay in my latest video being put out there, but that circumstances gone against me there, so sorry about that. Anyway, as promised before, this video will be on, subject matter will be Charlotte. She was actually the oldest Brontë sibling to survive into adulthood. After her two older sisters, Maria and Elizabeth, very sadly passed away as children. Sorry for that morbid slant, but I just thought I'd throw it in there at the start of this video. Charlotte was known as an instigator of a lot of the main events in the Brontë sisters' lives, relating very much to their publication history and how they became to be published authors. There is one episode in particular which really set things off in that direction. This was in 1846 when Charlotte thought up the idea of collecting poems by all three Brontë sisters and having them published. To begin with, she receives a bit of opposition to this, particularly from Emily, who never really wanted to see her work published. She was a very private person, but eventually she was won over, and they did eventually have their book of poetry published, but unfortunately it did not receive very good sales. In fact, it only sold 2 copies when it first became published, although it received some very positive reviews in the papers, which was one good thing at least. Another way that Charlotte pushed the sisters forward in a way was when she decided it would be a good thing if they carried on with their education in a foreign locale and decided they would go to Brussels. Originally, Anne was going to join Charlotte and Emily in this mission, but in the end, it was decided that Anne would remain as a governess with the Robinson family, where she was doing very well and earning her own living. So it was thought originally that Charlotte and Emily would set off for Brussels and then Anne might follow them later, but that actually never happened. But the main reason for them to go to Brussels in the first place was to gain and further their education in their efforts to they were actually thinking of starting up a school of their own, the 3 Brontë sisters, which originally was going to be housed at the parsonage in Haworth. They were going to build an extension to the parsonage to fit in schoolrooms, but in the end that episode never really got off the ground, although Charlotte was instigative on that too, printing up prospectuses, but no pupils could be found, so that all fell through. But they didn't realise at the time when they went to Brussels. That was in February of 1842. So Charlotte and Emily set off, originally in the company of their father, who just went over to make sure they were nicely settled there. And they became pupils at the pensionnat in Brussels under the tutelage of Professor Heger. And there is some pictures I would like to share with you on this subject. Yes, sorry, here it is. This is a drawing Charlotte did when she was in Brussels. It's of a watermill. That's a very fine drawing. And this next picture is of the Heger family, because Professor Heger was a married man and Madame Heger was actually head of the pensionnat and Professor Heger was a teacher there. And this is a picture of the family along with their children. It's quite a brood. And the other photo, the picture next to it, is actually one that Emily. That was actually a drawing by Emily when she was in Brussels in 1842. I'll give you another look at that one because it's particularly well achieved. So that was, yeah, they were over in Brussels furthering their education, and Emily didn't really enjoy the experience that much, and as I stated in my video on Emily, Professor Hager and her never really hit it off, and she was quite upfront of her criticisms of him as far as his teaching methods were concerned. But later on, he came to really appreciate her as a writer and thought she was destined for great things, which is how it turned out. But unfortunately for Charlotte, she fell under the spell of Professor Hager, and in fact she ended up falling in love with him, which is an unfortunate occurrence considering he was a married man. And when she left Brussels, the last stage of her time in Brussels, she suffered from severe depression, which carried through to when she returned home to Haworth. In fact, when she returned, she still wrote letters to Professor Hager, professing her high regard for him in no uncertain terms, which was probably not the best thing to do. And this is a letter. I'd like to show you a letter which she wrote to Professor Hager, and in a fit of anger, he ripped it up and threw it in a bin, but his wife reclaimed it, and for reasons best known to herself, stitched it up. And this is the letter in question. You can probably notice the stitch marks of it where she'd sewn it back in one piece again. So that was an unfortunate episode in the end, towards the end of the time at Brussels. I'd like now to offer up a potted history of Charlotte's publications, mostly her novels, which is what she's most known for. Jane Eyre she had published in 1847, which became known as one of the greatest novels of English language, and was published to rave reviews and was a really big hit with the reading public. She followed this with Shirley and Villette, and The Professor was the first novel she ever wrote, but was never accepted for publication during her lifetime. It was actually posthumously published, which was it's good in the end. Ended up seeing the light of day in the end because I think it is a pretty good novel. I've read it, and it's based on a time in Brussels. Yeah, there was, towards the end of her life, Charlotte, she always thought she would be a maiden lady. She would continue in that capacity and never move on from it. But she actually found love in the end and married her father's former curate, Arthur Bell Nichols. This was in June 1854. And she really loved married life. It really agreed with her, but very sadly, it was destined to be short-lived, and she died in March 1855, which is really unfortunate. And it's even sadder when you think about the fact that all of the Brontë siblings died before their father Patrick. He outlived all of them, which is something a parent would never want. Well, that's all for now for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and just to say that my next video will be considerably shorter, which is it's going to be based around the little-known Brontë sister Elizabeth, who is actually second in line in terms of age after Maria. Yeah, very little is known about her, but I've unearthed a few things which I find quite interesting. In fact, I brought her into my novel based on Anne Bronte's life, where I have Anne talking about her, and her memories of her are very vague, but it gives a picture of what her position in the family was like, and might be quite an interesting video to look into that one, I hope. Hope it'll be quite entertaining to you all, and thank you very much anyway for checking out my latest video, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you.